And welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is releasing identity and the vast possibilities that are open to us as we move beyond our identification with our roles and things and beyond to access magic and wonder. But before we get started, let's take a minute to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs and flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells and your organs. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any stress, negativity, fatigue. And let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, invigorating, revitalizing, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your molecules, all your electrons, and lighting your cells up from the inside out. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining stress or tension, fatigue, negativity. And now let's just gently press our palms together and softly, softly, softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel that wonderful tickling and tingling sensation and the deliciousness of being here physical right here, right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, releasing identity. Um, we were talking yesterday about uh, living beyond limits, life beyond limits, and this is really a continuation of that same idea. In that, uh, when we go beyond the boundaries of or release the limits created by our identities and our roles and the expectations that go along with them, as well as ideas of or attachments to places and things and the familiar, then we make available to ourselves new pathways, new patterns, new ways of thinking, new ways of connecting with ourselves, each other, and the universe. And we also make available to ourselves new possibilities that we wouldn't have otherwise been able to access. So let's look at that, and I have an example, and I think that it's an example that would serve everyone who has a vision or a mission, a purpose, and or wants to move into expression of mission, passion, and purpose. And so this story is from my life, that a really, truly life altering event when I, in 2017, when I took on my life's purpose. And it was a conscious and deliberate choice to step into ownership of my vision, my dream. And in doing so, what it was terrifying. Good morning, Suzanne. Welcome, welcome. Great to have you here. We're talking about releasing identity. And so I'm talking about the transformation that occurred for me when I made the choice to step into my mission and purpose. And it was terrifying because I knew that it meant letting go of my ideas about who I was and what I was capable of, and stepping into a possibility that was beyond my skills, connections, talent, abilities at the time. And what I realized in that moment is that there was no way that I could still be who I was in terms of the level of the game I was playing and accomplish this vision that I had. There was no way that I could keep my small identity and move into this place of making a grander difference. Good morning, Isabel. Welcome, welcome. So the vision that I had and have is to create an eco park, and what it is this phantasmagorical place that inspires wonder and awe and hopefulness while educating, and it's an immersive experience of the possibilities that already exist and also that are emergent to create a world that is spectacular and wonderful and sustainable. And at the time that I made the choice to really take that on, I had no real foundation. Hello, hello, welcome. Good afternoon, I hope. It's wonderful to have you here with us. So at that time, I had really very little knowledge of sustainability. I had no connections in the sustainable world. I had no idea what kinds of technologies would be incorporated in this eco park. And so in the face of all of that not knowing, I chose to step into it and take ownership of it. And as a result of doing that, or in the process of doing that, I knew that I had to let go of what I believed or knew about myself. And I had to rise above my insecurities, all the small identifications that I had for myself. And in that, it's opened up worlds and worlds and worlds to me, and continues to. And I think that the process of letting go of identities on all levels, I see it with my clients when they're confronted with releasing something, even that they believe has been a hindrance to them in their lives, but the releasing of it is like letting go of an old friend where the relationship maybe toxic, but still letting go of that relationship is sometimes sad, sometimes difficult. And letting go of the familiar things that are familiar to us. It's no accident that some of the biggest changes, the biggest transformations in life, or and the biggest stressors are often things like moving, ending a relationship, even starting a relationship, changing careers, and so the change, real change, happens when we allow ourselves to expand beyond the familiar, and the familiar things that we often identify with, living in a certain neighborhood, going to being a regular at a certain restaurant, or using a certain grocery store over and over again. So I've told you guys that I'm going to be going to an advanced workshop with Joe Dispenza in June. And so one of the prerequisites for that is to be listening, or to be listening to or watching a number of videos to understand the technology behind this, and the conceptualization behind it. So Suzanne says, moving to a different country with a different language. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a huge shift in identity, right? How about even, it reminds me of moving, for instance, from middle school to high school, you know, where you, in middle school, you're a senior and you're all that. And then you go into high school and you're a guppy again. It's kind of the same idea as being in a country where you're familiar with the language, you're familiar with the customs, and then picking up and going to another country where you don't have the facility with the language and you're unfamiliar with the customs. It's tough in the US. I've found when moving to make new friends sometimes. I lived in New Hampshire for a year before some people would even talk to me because they thought that I was going to be, transient. It was wild. Anyway, Elaine says, I love Joe. I met him in Houston. Um, and he's pretty remarkable guy. Did you meet him or did you have a course with him? He's pretty remarkable what he's up to. Anyway, listening to the meditations or doing the meditations, one of the things he talks about is becoming no one, no thing, nowhere, in no time, and releasing ourselves from all these familiar things that reinforce our sense of who we are, or that create our familiar world in order to be able to step into the vast unknown. Elaine says, that's true. I live in New Hampshire. It was crazy. I lived in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I lived in Kittery, Maine, but I worked in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I lived in Portsmouth for a little while too. And I had to be there more than a year before people would really even talk to me to say more than a hello. It was crazy. It was crazy because, I mean, people that had lived there for 25 years were still considered newcomers. It was wild. And good morning, Tammy. Great to have you here. Welcome, welcome. Elaine says, I went to one of his lectures. He zeroed in on me. I seemed to stick out in a crowd, though. How cool is that? That's awesome, Elaine. Very nice. So back to Joe Dispenza and talking about being no one, moving into the space of being no one and no thing, nowhere, no time. And what then are we? When we separate ourselves from all the identities and the identifications, and what then are we? And the beautiful thing that we arrive at is that we are consciousness, that we are presence. And in the context of consciousness and presence, we are unbounded. And if we're unbounded, we're capable of things that are unimaginable from the vantage point of all our identifications, if that makes sense. Elaine says, I used to live in New Hampshire, now in Texas. That's a big difference. Wow, radical difference from New Hampshire to Texas. Interesting. And Suzanne says, lose the expectations. We were just talking about that at the Cup of Joy. Perfect. So great. Continuity, we love that. Or synchronicity, right? That the expectations are driven by, what are our expectations driven by? They're driven by our values. They're driven by our beliefs. They're driven by our desires, right? So beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about how the world exists. And, I was talking yesterday about my experience with the Wim Hof workshop where I immersed myself up to my neck in an ice bath. I mean, it was more ice cubes than water, and was there for 5 minutes, which is really kind of unfathomable to me, you know, in terms of what my beliefs might have been. I mean, I knew it was possible, but to be, Isabel says emptiness. Beautiful, beautiful. And Elaine says, best place to be, no thing or no one, free from the mind's beliefs. Yes, and to be operating from that place of embracing the unknown. So when the expectations and identities and attachments are very much about creating an illusion of safety and continuity, and we believe that we can make ourselves safe, that if we know what's going to happen, that's safe somehow. And so we create all these projections of familiarity and expectation. And when we are free of that, we have access to unlimited possibility, to having things emerge and experiences emerge that are way beyond our imagination, that we can imagine something being wonderful and life-giving, and then the truth of it, or the way it manifests, can be even better than that, even better than we had the capacity to imagine. And so I can say that I've seen that as a result of choosing to step into my purpose. My beingness has shifted profoundly as a result. I had to shift to allow myself to be visible, to allow myself to share myself in the world, to allow myself. I'm sorry, Maggie is destroying a piece of artwork now. Hold on one second, Maggie. No, come on, Bubby. Come on. Good girl. Good girl, Maggie. The pearls of having her here. I've started locking her out of the room because she's so destructive in here. And now, so we play tag. As she goes to destroy something, I go to get her, and then she flies around the room evading me because she knows that I'm gonna either put her in her cage or send her out of the room. You can hear her disapproval. Anyway, as we're talking about the vast unknown that's available to us, and stepping beyond our notions of who we are. And so I was talking about how things have evolved even to be much richer than I would have imagined. I mean, as a result of taking that on, I think not only have I had the podcast Sustainability Now, but now the platform on EWN, One with the Earth. And I think that being here on a daily basis with you has also come out of being willing to follow my heart's calling, and stepping beyond myself, you know, stepping beyond my ideas of who I am. And I think that as we step into the unknown, the world unfolds as a grand adventure. And there's, I think, one of my highest values is, well, certainly freedom, but part of that for me is wonder and awe. And and it was so cool to hear in this Joe Dispenza recording. He was pushing all my buttons. He talked about wonder and awe and magic, and those are three of my like key words for the richness of life, or where the richness of life resides for me. So Elaine says, yes, living from the unknown, though truly trusting all, is infinite intelligences. Dropping beliefs and not taking on new beliefs by having experiences and letting go with no attachment over and over again. That's the challenge, right? Is the over and over again, because we're meaning-making machines. We want to make meaning. We want to understand the world. You know, we want to make sense of it, because there's some illusion, at least, of security or safety in making sense of things, and to kind of allow ourselves to be in free fall is a huge act of faith, and also the most invigorating, enlivening experience of life. So I actually did go skydiving once. It was a tandem jump, so I was hooked up to the professional on my by like rivets or something on my shoulders and on my hips, and so we got to free fall, and that was incredible. It was the most exhilarating thing I ever did in my life. I think I've shared this before, because at one point I realized I couldn't do anything about it. Like there was nothing I could control. So it was a moment of pure release for me to just surrender to whatever was going to happen, you know, to allow life to be in its unfoldment. And it was the most exhilarating, most invigorating thing I've ever done. And I've done all kinds of crazy things, as you've heard, but the clarity around having no control and letting go of the need for it, you know, to just allow life to unfold the way it was going to unfold. It was, and also to recognize that it could be life or death, you know, that I could be plunging to my death, and it was what it was. And whatever it was okay. Whatever it was spectacular. And I was totally present to it. And that's also another big letting go of expectations. Expectations are, I think, an outgrowth of our desire to control. And again, that's all illusion, right? It's all illusion. And so what does it look like to let go of our identities? Maybe one way to be able to do that is to look at, well, what identities do I hold? What am I identifying with? You know, who do I think I am? Who do I believe myself to be? And Elaine says, making identities or self-worth, or the lack of self-worth, through experience, the need to be right. Yes, all forms of control, the human conditions. Exactly. So it's interesting, because I think I've spoken about this before too. There are folks that do remote viewing. And it was part of a government program called the Shaman Spies at one point. What it was projecting consciousness to other locations other physical locations and times, you know, to move through time and space through consciousness and report back what was seen there. And people were able to witness their own death, for example. And the interesting thing was when I met Joe McMoneagle, who is one of these shaman spies, and he's written a book about remote viewing. And he said, because I was asking him about learning, I wanted to learn from him how to do this, and he said, well, he'd stop doing it because either people would quit or they'd go crazy because they didn't have a way to ground themselves in clearly not being what they believe themselves to be. You know, to like, if you can move through time and space in all dimensions, and if you can witness your own death, who are you? What are you? Right? And these folks didn't have a context, maybe a spiritual foundation to be able to grok that kind of experience, to be able to metabolize that experience without going nuts. And so I think that this is part of our passage to awakening, is releasing ourselves from identification with all the trappings of the familiar, whether it be our identification with this physical form, or our thoughts, our beliefs, our name, our gender, our race, our education, our jobs, our family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think the biggest fear that folks face in facing that is, how will I function in the world? You know, like that it would be life-threatening potentially, because would I even know how to eat anymore? Would I know how to take care of myself? What would happen to me? Would I just disappear? And it's very, very, very interesting conversation, but it's almost 9:30, and I'm going to cut it short a little bit today. Today in Pennsylvania is voting day. So if today is voting day for you, please, please, please go vote. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. I go live each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. And I invite you to check out the wonderful community in the Enlightened World Network, the EWN One with the Earth, Enlightened World Living, Enlightened World Network. And before we go, I'll just read what Elaine says. Those experiences will come to you when you're ready to embody those experiences, to enlighten you, not to disempower you or to create more fear. Exactly, 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 Elaine. So it's an evolution to get to a place where we can open up our being and our consciousness to receive and connect. And I so appreciate every one of you and your contributions, and you enrich my life so greatly, and with lots and lots of love. Until next time.